Desperation is humbling when the person you mocked holds the only thing that can save everything you're about to lose. Kang-Dae Seung learned that lesson in the dining room of his family's flagship hotel in Las Vegas, when his company was collapsing from a supernatural curse he didn't believe in, and the solution walked in holding her mother's hand. A 7-year-old girl who possessed the ability to see and manipulate the spiritual forces destroying his empire, daughter of the waitress he'd publicly humiliated 3 months earlier. It started with arrogance so casual it didn't even register as cruelty. Kang-Dae was 32, heir to the Seung Hotel Group, a Korean hospitality conglomerate operating luxury properties across Asia and North America. He'd been raised in wealth, educated at the best schools, groomed to take over operations worth $3 billion. He was brilliant at business strategy, ruthless in negotiations, and completely dismissive of people he considered beneath his social standing, which included most service workers, including the waitstaff at his family's hotels. The incident with Destiny White happened during a business dinner at the Seung Grand in Las Vegas. Kang-Dae was entertaining potential investors, performing the role of sophisticated hospitality executive, demonstrating why the Seung Hotel Group deserved their capital. Destiny was working her shift as server in the hotel's high-end restaurant. She was 28, had been working at the Seung Grand for 2 years, was competent and professional despite the demanding clientele. She approached Kang-Dae's table to take orders. "Good evening. Can I start you with drinks or appetizers?" Kang-Dae barely glanced at her. "We'll have the tasting menu. Wine pairings. Make sure everything is perfect, these are important guests." "Of course, sir. I'll coordinate with the sommelier." "Are you new? I don't recognize you from previous visits." "I've been here 2 years, sir. I usually work different sections." 2 years and you're still just a server? That suggests limited competence or ambition. Try not to make mistakes tonight. These investors are evaluating whether we maintain sufficient quality standards. Poor service reflects badly on the entire operation. The comment was casually dismissive, delivered without malice but with complete assumption that Destiny's professional trajectory was fair topic for his public assessment. Destiny's expression didn't change, professional mask remained intact, but something flickered in her eyes that suggested the comment had landed as intended insult rather than just observation. "I'll ensure everything meets your standards, sir." She provided flawless service throughout the dinner. Every course arrived perfectly timed, wine pairings were expert, anticipation of the table's needs was exceptional. But Kang-Dae barely noticed because excellent service was what he expected as baseline rather than as achievement worthy of recognition. At the end of the dinner, as Destiny was clearing the final course, one of the investors complimented the service. "Your staff is excellent. This young woman has been exceptionally attentive." Kang-Dae glanced at Destiny like he was noticing her for the first time. "Yes, the service standards here are high. Though I'm surprised someone who's been here 2 years hasn't advanced beyond serving tables. Suggests she's comfortable with mediocrity rather than pursuing advancement." The investor looked uncomfortable with the public criticism of staff. Destiny's professional mask finally cracked. Just for a moment, flash of anger and hurt before she controlled it. "If there's nothing else you need, I'll bring your check." After she left, the investor said quietly, "That was unnecessarily harsh. She provided excellent service and you insulted her competence in front of guests." "I was making an observation about ambition and professional development. You were being cruel to someone who can't respond without risking her job. That's not leadership, that's just arrogance." The criticism stung but Kang-Dae dismissed it. He was heir to a hotel empire. Delivering honest feedback about staff performance was part of his role, not cruelty. He forgot about Destiny White entirely within days of that dinner. 3 months later, the Seung Hotel Group began experiencing catastrophic problems that defied all rational explanation. It started with technology failures. Computer systems crashed repeatedly despite having redundant backups and top-tier IT support. Reservation systems lost data, financial records became corrupted, security systems malfunctioned in ways that created massive operational disruptions. Then the physical infrastructure started failing. Elevators stopped working despite passing all safety inspections. HVAC systems failed in multiple properties simultaneously. Water systems backed up or stopped functioning. Electrical systems had cascading failures that shouldn't have been possible with modern building codes and maintenance. The failures weren't random, they followed pattern that made no engineering sense but that created maximum damage to the company's reputation and operations. Guests experienced nightmares and inexplicable anxiety in certain rooms. Staff reported seeing shadows that didn't match light sources, hearing sounds that had no physical origin, feeling presences that made them want to flee properties. Within 2 months, the Seung Hotel Group's occupancy rates had dropped 40%. Insurance claims were mounting. Staff were quitting. Investors were demanding explanations. Kang-Dae's father, the current CEO, was losing his ability to manage the crisis. "We've hired the best engineers, the best IT consultants, the best crisis management firms. Nothing is working. The problems keep escalating despite every technical intervention. There has to be rational explanation. I've stopped believing in rational explanations. Something is attacking our company in ways that don't follow natural laws. I'm bringing in specialists who understand these kinds of problems." "What specialists? What are you talking about?" "Spiritual specialists. Shamans, priests, people who understand forces beyond engineering and technology." Kang-Dae was skeptical. He didn't believe in supernatural forces, thought his father was grasping at pseudoscientific solutions because rational approaches had failed. But he attended the meeting with the spiritual specialists because the alternative was watching the company collapse. The lead consultant was a Korean shaman who examined the properties and delivered assessment that sounded insane. "Your family's business is under curse. Specifically targeted curse from someone with legitimate grievance against your organization. The curse is attached to jade heirloom your great-grandfather used to establish the original hotel. The heirloom has been corrupted and is now source of spiritual poison spreading through all your properties." "That's nonsense. Curses aren't real. Whether you believe or not is irrelevant. The curse is real, the damage is real, and the collapse of your business is real. You can continue denying spiritual explanations while your company dies, or you can address the curse before it destroys everything." "How do we address something that doesn't exist?" "The jade heirloom needs to be cleansed by someone with specific spiritual gifts. Not just any practitioner, the corruption is too advanced for standard purification. You need someone with natural ability to see and manipulate spiritual energy. Someone with gift that can't be taught or learned, only inherited or manifested in rare individuals." "Where do we find this person?" "That's your challenge. The ability is extremely rare. Most people who possess it don't know they have it or don't develop it. You'll need to search for someone with the gift and convince them to help you." Kang-Dae thought this was an elaborate scam, but his father was convinced enough to authorize the search. They spent 3 weeks investigating people who claimed spiritual abilities. Psychics, mediums, energy healers, all examined the corrupted heirloom, all failed to produce any results beyond theatrical performances. Then one of the hotel's HR staff mentioned something during a meeting. "There's a server in Las Vegas who brings her daughter to work sometimes during school breaks. The child is unusual, she talks about seeing colors around people and objects, claims she can see things others can't. Other staff think she's just imaginative but the descriptions match what the shaman said about spiritual sight." "What's the server's name?" "Destiny White. She's been with us about 2 years." Kang-Dae felt cold recognition. The waitress he'd publicly mocked 3 months earlier. The one whose competence and ambition he'd questioned in front of investors. "Bring her and her daughter to my office tomorrow. Tell her it's about a special project that requires unique skills. Don't mention anything about curses or spiritual abilities, just get her here." The next day, Destiny arrived at Kang-Dae's office with visible suspicion about why the heir to the Seung Hotel Group wanted to meet with a server and her 7-year-old daughter. "Ms. White, thank you for coming. This is an unusual request but we need your daughter's help with a specific problem." "My daughter? She's 7 years old. What could she possibly help with?" Kang-Dae gestured to the jade heirloom sitting on his desk. A carved dragon about 8 inches long, beautiful craftsmanship, glowing slightly in the office lighting. The child, Zara, according to HR records, stared at the heirloom with obvious distress. "Mom, that thing is wrong. It's making the air black and sick. Why is it in here? Destiny looked at her daughter with concern. Zara, what are you talking about? The dragon statue. It's covered in black smoke and it's spreading everywhere. Can't you see it? No, baby. There's no black smoke. It's just a jade carving. Zara walked closer to the heirloom despite obvious reluctance. It's really sick. Someone made it sick on purpose. The black smoke is like poison and it's going everywhere, making everything wrong. Kang-Dae felt excitement despite his skepticism. Zara, can you describe what you're seeing in more detail? There's black smoke coming from the dragon. But underneath the black smoke, there's green light trying to get out, but it's trapped. The green light is good, but the black smoke is choking it. That description matched exactly what the shaman had said about the curse, corrupted spiritual energy overlaying the heirloom's natural beneficial properties. Can you touch it? Can you interact with the black smoke? Mr. Seung, what is this about? Destiny's voice was sharp with protective concern. Why are you asking my daughter to interact with some jade statue? Kang-Dae made a decision to be honest despite how insane the truth sounded. Our company is under a curse. That heirloom is the source. Every spiritual practitioner we've consulted says it needs to be cleansed by someone with natural spiritual sight and manipulation abilities. Your daughter appears to have those abilities. You think my daughter has magical powers? This is ridiculous. Mom, I can see the bad energy, Zara said quietly. He's telling the truth about it being wrong. I can see it. Destiny looked at her daughter, clearly processing that Zara's unusual perceptions might be real rather than just imaginative play. What are you asking her to do? Touch the heirloom. See if she can interact with the curse energy. If she can, we'll work with spiritual specialists to develop a purification process she can perform. And if she can't? If this is just my imaginative 7-year-old seeing things that aren't there? Then we've wasted an afternoon and I apologize for the intrusion. Destiny looked at Zara. Do you want to touch it, baby? You don't have to if it scares you. It's really sick, but I think I can help it. The green light wants to come back. Zara reached out, touched the jade dragon with one small finger. The reaction was immediate and visible even to people without spiritual sight. The jade dragon flared with light, not natural reflection but actual emanation of energy. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Shadows moved wrong, didn't align with light sources. Zara gasped, pulled her hand back. That hurt. The black smoke doesn't want to leave and it tried to bite me when I touched it. Are you okay? Destiny grabbed her daughter, checked her for injury. I'm okay. But the dragon is really, really sick. It's going to take a lot of work to make the green light come back. Kang-Dae felt overwhelming relief mixed with guilt. This child could interact with the curse. She might be able to save his company. But she was the daughter of a woman he'd publicly humiliated, and asking for her help meant acknowledging he needed something from someone he'd dismissed as mediocre and unambitious. Ms. White, I need to ask you for a favor that I have no right to request given how I treated you during that business dinner 3 months ago. Destiny's expression went cold. You remember that dinner? I remember insulting your competence and ambition in front of guests. I remember being casually cruel to someone who was providing excellent service. I was wrong. I was arrogant and dismissive and I treated you with disrespect you didn't deserve. Why the sudden recognition of your behavior? Because I need your daughter's help desperately and I'm aware that you have every reason to refuse based on how I treated you. What exactly are you asking? I'm asking if Zara can work with spiritual specialists to purify this heirloom. If she can cleanse the curse, it might stop the cascade of failures destroying our company. I'll pay whatever compensation you think is fair. I'll provide whatever support Zara needs. But I'm asking you to help someone who doesn't deserve your help because your daughter might be the only person who can save my family's business. Destiny looked at him for a long moment. You're asking me to risk my daughter's well-being to save your hotel empire after you publicly mocked me and questioned my worth as both an employee and a person. Yes. I'm aware how that sounds. I'm aware I have no standing to ask for this. But I'm asking anyway because I'm desperate and your daughter is the first person who's been able to actually interact with the curse. What happens to our family if I say no? Do I get fired? Does my housing get threatened? Do you make my life difficult because I refuse to help you? Nothing happens. You continue your work, your housing is secure, there are no consequences beyond me respecting your decision to refuse someone who treated you terribly. Destiny looked at Zara. What do you think, baby? Do you want to try to help the sick dragon? I want to help it. The green light is trapped and it wants to be free. But the black smoke is really strong and it might take a long time. If we agree to this, I need guarantees, Destiny said to Kang-Dae. Guarantees that Zara's safety is the priority, that we can stop anytime she's overwhelmed, that you're not going to pressure a 7-year-old to fix your cursed heirloom at the expense of her well-being. You have those guarantees. Zara's safety is absolute priority. We stop whenever she needs to stop. And I'll pay you both for this work. Zara's time and effort deserve compensation regardless of outcome. How much? Kang-Dae named a figure that was substantial, $50,000 for the purification work, paid whether or not it succeeded, with additional compensation if Zara actually managed to cleanse the curse. Destiny's eyes widened. That's a lot of money. It's nothing compared to what my company is losing daily from this curse. And it's inadequate compensation for asking your daughter to do spiritual work that might be difficult or draining. But it's what I'm offering. We'll do it. But the moment Zara shows signs of distress or exhaustion, we stop. Her well-being matters more than your business. Agreed completely. What Kang-Dae didn't realize was that asking Destiny's 7-year-old daughter to save his empire would transform everything about his understanding of worth, value, and where real power actually resided. Subscribe to see what happens when arrogance requires help from someone you dismissed, when a child's spiritual gifts become the only thing standing between an empire and collapse, and a man learns that power has nothing to do with status when the person who can save everything is the daughter of the waitress he mocked. Comment where you're watching from and tell me, would you help someone who publicly humiliated you if they desperately needed something only you could provide? This story is just beginning. The purification process took 3 months and revealed just how little Kang-Dae understood about actual power versus inherited status. Zara worked with a Korean shaman and 2 other spiritual practitioners who specialized in curse removal. They taught her techniques for visualizing and manipulating the spiritual energy, for protecting herself from backlash, for gradually extracting the corruption without damaging the underlying heirloom. Kang-Dae attended every session, watching a 7-year-old do work that multiple expert practitioners couldn't accomplish, seeing his company's fate rest in the hands of a child whose mother he dismissed as mediocre. She's remarkable, the shaman said during one session. Natural spiritual sight this strong is extremely rare. Most practitioners spend decades developing abilities she has instinctively. Can she actually remove the curse? Eventually. The corruption is deep but she's making progress. Each session extracts more of the black energy and allows more of the heirloom's natural beneficial properties to emerge. It's slow but it's working. Destiny attended every session, monitoring her daughter's well-being with protective vigilance that reminded Kang-Dae that Zara wasn't just spiritual practitioner, she was a child whose safety mattered more than any business outcome. How are you feeling, baby? Destiny would ask after each session. Tired. The black smoke fights when I try to pull it out. But the green light is getting stronger. I think I can do it. Between sessions, Kang-Dae started seeing Destiny and Zara as actual people rather than just the server he'd dismissed and her unexpectedly gifted daughter. Destiny was raising Zara alone, father had left when Zara was an infant, no child support, no co-parenting support. She worked full-time at the hotel while managing childcare, Zara's education, and the complex logistics of single parenting. The reason she'd been just a server for 2 years wasn't lack of ambition or competence. It was that she couldn't pursue management positions that required irregular hours or travel when she was solely responsible for a young child. I'm sorry, Kang-Dae said during one of their conversations while Zara was working with the practitioners. For what I said during that dinner. About you being comfortable with mediocrity. I made assumptions about your ambition without understanding anything about your actual circumstances. You made assumptions because I'm a black woman serving tables at a luxury hotel. You assumed that was the ceiling of my capabilities rather than just current reality of balancing work with single parenting. You're right. I was arrogant and dismissive based on superficial assessment. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing now? Because you need my daughter's help or because you've actually recognized the harm? Both. I need Zara's help desperately. But I've also spent 3 months watching you parent her, watching how you balance work and childcare and protect her well-being while supporting her gifts. That's harder than anything I do as hotel executive. My comment about mediocrity was cruel and wrong, and I'm sorry. What changed? What made you capable of seeing me as actual person rather than just service worker who wasn't living up to your standards? Desperation. Watching my company collapse forced me to seek help from someone I'd dismissed. That required actually seeing you and Zara as people with value beyond how you served my needs. That's humbling in ways I needed to experience. So humiliation is educational. Good to know. It is. Though I'd have preferred to learn that lesson without requiring your daughter to save my business first. 6 weeks into the purification work, Zara successfully extracted enough of the curse that the heirloom's beneficial properties started manifesting. Technology failures at the Seung properties started decreasing. Occupancy rates began recovering. Staff reported that the oppressive atmosphere in certain locations was lifting. It's working, Kang-Dae's father said during a board meeting. Whatever the child is doing, it's actually working. We're seeing measurable improvement across all properties. She's removing a curse that was destroying our business. The improvement is because Zara has spiritual gifts none of our technical consultants possess. I don't care if it's spiritual gifts or technical expertise. I care that it's working. Make sure we compensate the family appropriately. Kang-Dae had already increased the compensation beyond the initial offer. $200,000 total, paid in installments as Zara completed the purification work. Destiny accepted the money with obvious relief. This is life-changing. This pays off my student loans, creates college fund for Zara, gives us financial security I haven't had since she was born. It's inadequate compensation for saving a $3 billion company. But it's what I can authorize without board approval. Why do you care? You got what you needed. Zara is fixing your curse, your business is recovering. Why continue being generous beyond the minimum necessary? Because I've spent 3 months watching your daughter do work I couldn't even perceive, let alone accomplish. Because you've shown me that worth has nothing to do with job titles or status. Because I was wrong about you and continuing to treat you as just useful resource would repeat the same arrogance that created this situation. Destiny studied him carefully. You've changed. You're less dismissive. Less certain that your perspective is the only valid one. Desperation is educational. Having to ask for help from someone I insulted forces humility I've needed. Is this temporary? Once your business is saved, do you go back to being the arrogant heir who mocks service workers? I don't know. I hope not. But I don't have track record that would inspire confidence in permanent transformation. 3 months after beginning the purification work, Zara successfully completed the curse removal. The jade heirloom glowed with clear green light, no trace of the black corruption that had spread throughout the Seung Hotel Group's properties. The beneficial spiritual properties were fully restored. Within 2 weeks, every measurable problem afflicting the company resolved. Technology functioned normally. Physical infrastructure operated properly. Guest experiences improved. Staff retention recovered. Occupancy rates returned to pre-curse levels. The Seung Hotel Group was saved by a 7-year-old who could see spiritual energy that Kang-Dae hadn't believed existed until his company was collapsing. Thank you, Kang-Dae said during the final session. He was addressing Zara directly, treating her as the practitioner who'd saved his business rather than just as a child. You saved my family's company. I'm grateful for your work and for your gift. You're welcome. I'm glad the green light came back. The dragon is happy now. What will you do with your compensation? Your mother mentioned college fund. What do you want to do when you're older? I want to help sick things like the dragon. But also I want to help people. Mom says I can do both if I study hard. You can absolutely do both. You have remarkable gifts and I hope you develop them fully. After Zara left with the spiritual practitioners for final debriefing, Kang-Dae spoke with Destiny privately. I've authorized a permanent position for you in our corporate offices. Management level, appropriate salary, regular hours that accommodate Zara's school schedule. You've spent 2 years working a serving position that was beneath your capabilities because it was the only option compatible with single parenting. That was failure on our part to create opportunities for talented employees with caregiving responsibilities. You're offering me a management position because I helped save your company? I'm offering you a position you should have been considered for 2 years ago if we'd had appropriate evaluation systems instead of just assuming servers were in appropriate roles based on where they were working. Your daughter's gifts don't change that you're capable of management work. They just revealed that I'd made assumptions about your trajectory that were wrong. What if I don't want to work for the Seung Hotel Group? What if saving your company doesn't mean I want to continue working for someone who mocked me? Then you use the compensation to build whatever life you want and I respect that decision. The position is offered without obligation. Take it if it serves your goals, decline it if working for me is uncomfortable given our history. Destiny considered the offer. What's the position specifically? Director of Employee Experience and Development. Focus on creating pathways for staff advancement, especially for employees with caregiving responsibilities who've been overlooked for promotion. Build the systems I should have built years ago. That's actually meaningful work. Using my experience as overlooked employee to build better systems. That's the intention. Use your perspective to fix the failures that created your situation. I'll think about it. The compensation gives me options. I don't have to accept immediately just because it's offered. Take whatever time you need. The offer stands regardless of when you're ready to decide. Destiny accepted the position 3 months later, after confirming through other employees that it was legitimate opportunity rather than just gratitude-based gesture that would disappear once Kang-Dae's attention moved elsewhere. She was exceptional in the role. Identifying structural barriers to advancement for hourly employees, creating training programs that accommodated caregiving responsibilities, building mentorship systems that developed talent instead of just assuming talent would self-identify. Within a year, employee retention improved significantly. Internal promotions increased. Staff satisfaction scores rose. The Director of Employee Experience position created measurable business value beyond just being good practice. Kang-Dae found himself working closely with Destiny on strategic initiatives, seeing her capabilities that had been invisible when she was serving tables at his business dinners. You were right to call me out for arrogance, he said during one of their meetings. Watching you build these systems shows me how much talent I was missing because I made assumptions based on where people were working rather than what they were capable of doing. The arrogance wasn't unique to you. It's a systemic problem in hospitality, assumption that hourly employees are in appropriate roles based on current position rather than recognizing barriers to advancement. How do we fix it systematically instead of just in isolated cases? We're fixing it. These programs create pathways that didn't exist before. But it requires ongoing commitment from leadership, not just temporary initiatives that get deprioritized when other business concerns emerge. You're worried I'll lose interest once the initial enthusiasm fades. I'm worried that unless this becomes embedded in company culture and leadership priorities, it'll drift back to old patterns of overlooking hourly talent. Then we embed it. Make this part of executive evaluation metrics, tie compensation to success in developing internal talent. Make it structurally sustainable beyond just my current commitment. They worked together for 2 years, building systems that transformed how the Seung Hotel Group developed and promoted employees. The business outcomes were substantial, better talent retention, reduced recruitment costs, improved service quality from engaged employees who had advancement pathways. During those 2 years, Kang-Dae also spent increasing time with Zara, whose spiritual gifts had been integrated into formal training with the spiritual practitioners who'd helped her purify the heirloom. "She's extraordinarily talented," the shaman reported. "She's learning techniques that take most practitioners decades to master. Her natural abilities combined with proper training make her one of the most gifted young practitioners I've encountered." Will she continue this work as she gets older? That's her choice and her mother's. But she has gifts that are valuable beyond just personal development. She could help many people if she chooses to pursue this path. Kang-Dae found himself wanting to support Zara's development not just because she'd saved his company but because she was a remarkable child whose gifts deserved cultivation. He funded her training with the spiritual practitioners, arranged for specialized education that accommodated her unusual perceptual abilities, created scholarship fund that would support her education through college regardless of what field she chose to pursue. "Why are you doing this?" Destiny asked when he presented the scholarship fund. "You've already compensated us well for the curse removal. You don't owe us ongoing support." "I'm not doing it because I owe you. I'm doing it because Zara has gifts that deserve development and because I have resources that can support that development. That's opportunity alignment, not obligation fulfillment. It feels like you're trying to buy redemption for that initial dinner where you mocked me." "I'm not trying to buy redemption. I'm trying to support a child whose gifts changed my understanding of value and worth. If that also provides partial redemption for my arrogance, that's beneficial side effect rather than primary motivation." 3 years after Zara saved his company, Kang-Dae realized he'd fallen in love with Destiny. Not because she'd saved his business or because her daughter had spiritual gifts, but because working with her for 3 years had revealed someone brilliant, principled, and completely unimpressed by his status or wealth. She challenged his assumptions, called him out when he drifted back toward arrogant patterns, built systems that were more effective than anything he'd developed in 10 years of executive leadership. "I need to tell you something," he said during one of their strategic meetings. "Something personal that might make our working relationship uncomfortable." "What?" "I've developed feelings for you. Romantic feelings. I know that's inappropriate given our professional relationship and our history. I'm telling you because pretending otherwise feels dishonest." Destiny looked at him carefully. "You're attracted to me now that I'm in a position where you can see my capabilities. You weren't interested when I was serving tables." "That's accurate but reductive. I'm attracted to who you are, your intelligence, your principles, your unwillingness to accept my arrogance. Those qualities were present when you were serving tables but I couldn't see them because I was too dismissive to look. I'm seeing them now because you've forced me to actually pay attention. What do you want? Relationship? Affair? What's the goal of this confession? I want to explore whether there's possibility of relationship between us. I understand that's complicated by our professional relationship and by how we met. But I'm asking anyway because you're extraordinary and I'd regret not asking. I don't know if I can separate my feelings about you now from how I felt when you publicly humiliated me. That dinner was devastating. You questioned my worth in front of people I was serving, made me feel small and insignificant. I've moved past it professionally but romantically? I don't know if I can forget that beginning. I understand. If you can't move past it, I respect that. The dinner was cruel and wrong and I can't undo it. I can only be different now and hope that's enough for you to consider possibility. Give me time to think about whether I can separate who you were from who you've become. Don't pressure me for answer. Take whatever time you need. No pressure, no consequences if the answer is no." 6 months later, Destiny agreed to try dating. Carefully, slowly, maintaining professional boundaries while exploring personal compatibility. "Why did you agree?" Kang-Dae asked after their first official date. "Because I've watched you change over 3 years. I've seen you build systems that serve employees instead of just extracting value from them. I've seen you support Zara without expecting anything in return. I've seen you become someone different than the arrogant heir who mocked me. That transformation is worth exploring even though our beginning was terrible. What if I revert? What if this is temporary transformation that doesn't last? Then we end things and I continue my work independently. But I'm willing to try because people can change if they're motivated and if they do the work. You've been doing the work. They dated for 2 years. Building relationship that was complicated by their professional connection and their history but that was also genuine in ways that transcended those complications. Zara, now 12 years old, had her own opinions about her mother dating Kang-Dae. Do you trust him? She asked Destiny one evening. I'm learning to trust him. Why do you ask? Because you were really hurt when he said those mean things about you at his dinner. I remember you crying that night. I want to make sure he's not going to hurt you again. He might hurt me again. All relationships include that risk. But he's shown through his actions that he's different than he was when we first met. That's worth risking hurt to explore. His energy is different now. When I first saw him, his energy was cold and hard. Now it's warmer, softer. That means he's changed inside, not just outside. You can see that? Through your spiritual sight? Yeah. People's energy changes when they become different inside. His changed a lot. That's good. 5 years after mocking a waitress and 3 years after starting to date her, Kang-Dae proposed to Destiny. They were at dinner, not at a Seung hotel property but at a modest restaurant Destiny had chosen, place that served excellent food without pretension or luxury pricing. This is very different from where we first met, Kang-Dae observed. That's intentional. I wanted setting that's about us rather than about your status or your business. Fair choice. I've been thinking about that dinner a lot lately. About how catastrophically wrong I was about you, about value, about worth. About how arrogant I was. You've apologized many times. I've accepted those apologies. We don't need to keep revisiting it. I'm not revisiting to apologize again. I'm revisiting to acknowledge that if you'd been appropriately valued when we first met, we might have built relationships sooner and without the terrible beginning. That's loss that came from my arrogance. Or we wouldn't have built relationship at all because you wouldn't have been forced to examine your assumptions. Sometimes terrible beginnings create necessary conditions for meaningful transformation. That's generous interpretation. It's realistic interpretation. You needed humiliation to recognize your arrogance. Zara's spiritual gifts and the curse created that humiliation. Without that, you'd probably still be the dismissive heir who mocks service workers. Probably. Which brings me to what I wanted to ask you tonight. He pulled out a ring, simple, elegant, chosen because Destiny had mentioned she didn't like ostentatious displays of wealth. Marry me. Build life with someone who was terrible when you met him but who's learned to be better through knowing you and Zara. I know our beginning was awful. I know you have every reason to question whether my transformation is permanent. But I'm asking anyway because you're extraordinary and I want to spend my life with you. Destiny looked at the ring, at Kang-Dae, clearly processing everything that had brought them to this moment. Yes. I'll marry you. Not because you've redeemed yourself for that initial dinner, you can't undo that harm. But because you've proven over 5 years that you're capable of sustained change. That's enough. They married 6 months later in a ceremony that was modest by Seung family standards but meaningful in ways that transcended luxury or status. Zara, now 13, served as Destiny's maid of honor. During her toast at the reception, she articulated what the entire relationship had been about. When I first met Kang-Dae, his energy was cold and he made my mom cry with mean words about her not being good enough. But then our family saved his company and he started changing. His energy got warmer. He started seeing people's actual worth instead of just seeing their jobs. He became someone who deserved my mom. That transformation is what matters, not where someone starts, but whether they're willing to become better. Kang-Dae did that. So I'm happy they're getting married. 7 years after dismissing a waitress as mediocre and unambitious, Kang-Dae had built a life that bore no resemblance to his previous existence. He ran the Seung Hotel Group with philosophy focused on developing employee talent and creating advancement pathways. The company was more profitable and more sustainable than when he'd prioritized status over actual value. He'd married the woman he'd mocked, building relationship with someone who challenged him and called him out when he drifted toward old patterns. He'd helped raise a stepdaughter whose spiritual gifts reminded him daily that worth had nothing to do with status or conventional measures of success. "Do you regret it?" Destiny asked one evening. They were at home, watching Zara practice spiritual techniques with the practitioners who'd trained her. "The transformation you've made? Giving up the arrogant certainty that came with being heir to a hotel empire? Never. What I had before was status without meaning. What I have now is smaller in ego terms but infinitely more valuable. I have relationship with you and Zara, I have business that actually serves people well, I have understanding that worth isn't determined by position. That's worth every bit of humiliation that created it. The humiliation was necessary. You needed your empire threatened by something you couldn't solve through status or money. You needed to ask for help from someone you dismissed. That combination forced transformation you wouldn't have pursued voluntarily. Did you know that would happen? When you agreed to help with the curse? No. I just wanted the compensation and I wanted Zara to develop her gifts. But watching you change was unexpected benefit of that decision. I'm grateful you gave me chance to change. Most people wouldn't have after how I treated you. Most people don't have daughters whose spiritual gifts can save hotel empires. The necessity created opportunity. What you did with that opportunity determined outcome. They'd proven that even the most arrogant dismissal could transform into meaningful relationship if humiliation was educational rather than just destructive, that worth had nothing to do with status when a 7-year-old spiritual gifts became the only thing standing between empire and collapse, that the person you mock might be the only one who can save everything you're about to lose. The waitress he dismissed as mediocre. The child whose gifts saved his empire. The arrogant heir who learned that power resided in unexpected places when you were desperate enough to actually see it. All of them proving that transformation begins when you're forced to ask for help from someone you dismissed, and real worth is measured by spiritual gifts and sustained character rather than by inherited status or assumed superiority. Desperation reveals where real power resides, and it's rarely where status suggests. Kang-Dae Seung was heir to a $3 billion hotel empire. He had status, wealth, authority derived from his family's business success. He thought that status entitled him to dismiss people in service positions as less capable or less ambitious than his elevated circle. Then his empire was cursed, his status couldn't save him, and the solution walked in holding her mother's hand. A 7-year-old girl who possessed spiritual gifts he didn't believe existed until they became the only thing standing between his business and total collapse. The reversal was devastating and necessary. Kang-Dae had to watch someone he'd dismissed publicly save everything he'd taken for granted. Had to ask for help from a woman he'd mocked. Had to acknowledge that his understanding of worth and value was completely wrong. That humiliation was educational. It forced him to see that worth had nothing to do with job titles or social position, that the waitress he'd dismissed was more capable than he'd recognized, that his daughter possessed gifts more valuable than any business expertise he'd accumulated. Their story proves that status is an illusion when you're desperate. Kang-Dae's position as heir meant nothing when his empire was collapsing from spiritual forces he couldn't perceive. The only person who could help was a child whose mother he'd treated with casual cruelty 3 months earlier. It also proves that arrogance can be transformed if humiliation is paired with genuine motivation to change. Kang-Dae didn't just apologize for his treatment of destiny, he rebuilt his entire approach to employees and value, creating systems that served people instead of just extracting service from them. That transformation wasn't performed to win destiny's favor. It was genuine recognition that his previous understanding of worth was wrong, that he'd built status on assumptions that didn't reflect actual capabilities or value. Most importantly, their story demonstrates that the people you dismiss might possess exactly what you'll desperately need when your carefully constructed world collapses. Zara's spiritual gifts were invisible when Kang-Dae was secure in his status. They became invaluable when his empire was threatened by forces beyond conventional solutions. The arrogant heir who mocked a waitress for being just a server. The 7-year-old whose spiritual gifts saved a $3 billion empire. The mother who gave the man who'd humiliated her chance to prove transformation was genuine. All of them proving that power and worth have nothing to do with status when desperation forces you to see capabilities you'd previously dismissed as irrelevant to your elevated concerns. If you loved this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about humiliation educating arrogance, unexpected gifts saving empires, and learning that the person you mock might be the only one who can save everything you're about to lose. Comment below. Have you ever dismissed someone who later proved essential to solving a problem you couldn't handle alone? Or been dismissed by someone who later needed your help? Share your experiences. Thanks for watching, and remember, the person you mock today might be the only one who can save you tomorrow. Worth has nothing to do with status or position, it's measured by actual capabilities and gifts. Treat everyone with respect not just because it's moral, but because you never know when desperation will force you to recognize worth you'd previously dismissed as irrelevant to your concerns. Until next time.